So I love Metroidvanias. I think I've made that clear, but I'll say it again. I love Metroidvanias. If I were to make a list of my top 5 favorite genres of gaming, then Metroidvanias would most likely be in my top 3 easily. Hollow Knight, Ori, Metroid, even Ender Lilies are all games I've had fantastic times with, each one for their smooth platforming and combat, beautiful soundtrack, and gorgeous worlds. Another thing I'm familiar with? Ubisoft games. So my relationship with Ubisoft is, how do I put it, non-existent. From putting out what is practically the same model of game over and over and over and over and over again, my respect for Ubisoft games have just continued to drop lower and lower. Now, I can recognize that they made good games, great games even, but I genuinely can't remember the last time I played a Ubisoft game that left me with a better feeling of passable. So it's genuinely great to have Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And it's heartbreaking that this game has been selling so poorly, because Prince of Persia really manages to check off all of the things I would hope for a good Metroidvania. And it's even better because for a Ubisoft game, Prince of Persia is different from their other games. And not only is it different, but it's good. I'd even say really good. Is it mind-blowing? No. Does it revolutionize the Metroidvania genre? No. Is it even one of the best Metroidvanias around? I can't even say that much. But what I can say is Ubisoft Montpellier has crafted a stylish, colorful, and great-feeling Metroidvania. And while admittedly I never played the Prince of Persia series before this, I can say that this game is what's motivating me to want to check out the rest of the series, because if it's anything like this game, I have a feeling that they're all pretty darn good. Okay, so what's the story? Sargon is an ambitious warrior who just joined a group of mighty soldiers called the Immortals. He's celebrated, but the party is short-lived after the crown prince is kidnapped, causing Sargon and the Immortals to take chase, leading them to Mount Koth, a place where time doesn't function correctly and monsters and gods roam the mountain. Now Sargon must explore the mountain, unravel its mysteries, and save the prince, but Sargon will soon discover that there are more evil forces at work than he realized. The story sounds good, too bad it's also the weakest part of the game. And it kind of sucks because the style in this game is great. The animations are great. I particularly love the character designs of everything. It's honestly just a fun game to look at. But other than Sargon, who even then isn't the most developed, but I think has the best voice acting, I didn't much care about what was going on with any of the other characters. And while I like Sargon, because I didn't care for any of the other characters, I didn't really care about their interactions with Sargon. That made the cutscenes, and by extension the story, just kind of fall into the style but no substance category of entertainment for me personally, which, given how cool the game looks, is honestly kind of disappointing. And I need to be clear, the game looks great. It's honestly one of my biggest pros of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Everything in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is just beautiful. From the colorful environments ranging from lush forests and decrepit ruins that are as colorful as they are beautifully detailed, with the backgrounds of Prince of Persia really giving the world so much depth, like any good Metroidvania should. Ori did this, Hollow Knight did this, Ender Lilies did this, and now Prince of Persia is doing it too. It's just the little things, like watching the trees flowing in the background, or pieces of rubble falling as you make your way through the ruins, that really makes Mount Koth feel like more than just a level. It feels like an actual place. Then add in expressive and totally badass animations, and Prince of Persia is a game that is truly oozing style in literally every pixel. Even just running around Mount Koth has this mesmerizing atmosphere to it that really gives this game a serious sense of place that, before you know it, becomes increasingly harder and harder to pull away from. with special thanks also going to the score. Gareth Coker has somehow managed to make yet another mystical yet badass soundtrack. Now, it's not one of the all-time greats, and it's certainly not up there with the likes of Ori, but it is a soundtrack that does help to give this game and its world a great identity. And in certain fights, it really does help to make things insanely epic. But how about we stop kidding ourselves, yeah? The main draw for this Metroidvania, the main draw for most Metroidvanias, is its platforming and its combat. And this is obviously where Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown shines the brightest. Now, when compared to most other Metroidvanias, Prince of Persia seems to have a much greater focus on combat than you may think. Like, more akin to Hollow Knight than, say, Ori. The twin swords Sargon uses feel heavy, and yet combat still manages to feel extremely quick, which really requires the player to almost always be reading the enemy's movement while simultaneously moving and attacking at the right time. It's not easy, especially since these are some tough enemies. I played Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown on the hard difficulty, and let me tell you, all the enemies, even the smallest and weakest, can really knock you down a peg if you're not careful. But for me personally, that just really helped to endear me even more. I love a challenge, and matched with the speed and weight of battle with the high damage of enemies really keeps the combat constantly engaging, as you're encouraged to mix together multiple different attacks and combos between your swords, bow, and your chakram attacks, with more often than not devastatingly visceral results. Add in some familiar gameplay aspects from other Metroidvanias, including amulets that allow even deeper gameplay customization, and even some original ideas, including the Apthra Surge, that's built up by parrying and landing attacks, and you have a surprisingly deep combat system that rewards aggressiveness and, most importantly, experimentation. And listen, I'll say this, the thrill of combat is not exemplified more than with Prince of Persia's The Lost Crown's boss fights. I believe it's an unspoken rule that Metroidvanias can't be good Metroidvanias without massive and stellar boss fights that masterfully walk the tightrope of being challenging yet fair at the same time. And this is where some of my favorite moments of the game really come into play. From the battle with Azdaha to the Forest Queen, these are seriously some epic, thrilling, edge-of-your-seat boss fights with that oh so satisfying feel of accomplishment. I love them. I love them. I feel like my favorite boss fight of the entire game is probably Azdaha. The design of the boss, the music, the challenge, it was just such an awesome fight. While Prince of Persia is a Metroidvania that, yeah, I'd argue mainly focuses more on combat, the platforming is still absolutely no slouch. Early on, as you move throughout the game, the traversal is pretty straightforward. You have your basic moves, your jump, your wall jump, a slide, etc. So the platforming puzzles aren't too complicated in the early game, but what they lack in difficulty, the first thing you notice about the platforming is the smooth as butter movement. From running, jumping, and sliding, all flowing so smoothly into each other, and thus being super satisfying as you're sprinting and dodging through the enemies and traps. But once you start to receive the time-based abilities in the game that allow double jumping, dashing in midair, and more, at that point you can really start to see the platforming gradually get harder, some even requiring me to stop mid-traversal sequence to think about my next move. But then I just end up dying for like the umpteenth time. But then you start to master the movement, build up the muscle memory, and from that I was able to begin flying through these stages without so much as a thought, but just pure reaction. And when you get to that point in the game takes a 180 shift from frustrating to super satisfying as you fly through some complicated trap sequences that felt so satisfying to get through without really having to think about them. simply relying on my reactions and intuition of jumps, dashes, and even unique moves like creating an after image that instantly teleports you to where you placed it. It not only leads to some super fun and challenging puzzles, but at the end of the day, it's unique, with the time-based abilities really allowing Prince of Persia to stand out from other Metroidvanias on the market. Yeah, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is really just a game where once you get a handle on everything, it just kind of clicks, you know? Like, you have the super stylish and beautiful look of the game, which leads into how massive and immersive the world is. The combat is fast yet heavy, which leads to heavy combo potential and can lead right back to pulling off some sick and stylish moves with a wide range of skills. But that can lead into how smooth and tight the platforming is, with the use of these super cool and unique moves that help to keep the platforming satisfying even as the difficulties continue to rank up. Everything I just said comes together to make something that, again, is not groundbreaking or mind-blowing, but something that is polished, fun, and just from start to finish, just an overall feel-good game to play. And to come from Ubisoft, of all places. Yes, even if it's a separate division of Ubisoft, it deserves to be praised. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is exactly what lovers of a Metroidvania can come to expect. It lags pretty hard in the story department if you ask me, which is pretty disappointing. But outside of that, Prince of Persia managed to meet all the expectations that I think comes with a quality Metroidvania. Great visuals, massive map, heavy and fast combat, unique and polished platforming and puzzles, beautiful soundtrack, and stellar boss fights. These all help to fill out the checklist for a satisfying Metroidvania, while also offering a few unique spins of its own to help give it its own identity. Again, this isn't one of the all-time great Metroidvanias, but it is indeed a quality and satisfying adventure, and certainly the first great game of 2024. And that was my review of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to stay up to date on what I'm doing, be sure to follow my Instagram. I will put the link in the bio. My next video is most likely going to be a why I'm buying on the next really big game of 2024. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Final Fantasy Rebirth. I'm excited for that one. That one is going to be awesome. After that, I do have a review plan, but it's gonna be a little different. I'm honestly really excited to do this next review, so I'll keep you guys updated on that. But yet, thank you again for watching. Be good people, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, peace.